everybody, and welcome back to the music rating, ranking, and reviewing podcast we like to call Music Meltdown, in which we rate, rank, and review any artist's discography, songs, musical topics, really whatever comes to mind. This episode, I've brought in two people that are a pretty big fan of the artist that we're covering today, and an artist that I struggle to listen to all the records of. I don't dislike this group. I want to get that out of the way. I do have some positive scores. But this is probably the first time in which doing the deep dive has probably hurt my enjoyment of the artist as a whole, if that makes sense. We're talking about 80s, 70s, classics, 70s and 80s AOR and pop rock band Toto. Although they are far more than just pop and rock, they have plenty of progressive elements, harder rock, I already mentioned progressive moments. They have harder rocking, sort of soulful moments. There's plenty of stuff going on within the Toto sound. It's just a matter of picking out what you like the most. Career spanning from the 70s all the way to the 2010s. We're counting 13 albums, pretty much all of them except for their cover record. And with that being said, your guys' familiarity with Toto going into this.
Yeah, so massive fan. I've been a big fan of them for quite a while. Just really drawn to their really slick, poppy, high class kind of rock sound. And all the band members are just really cool. Great band, really good history. Love them.
Nice. You say all the singers are very cool.
Yeah.
There's one or two of those in this catalog. So.
Yeah, there's got at least 4 prominent ones.
I don't know. I like them. Tavi, your experience with Toto?
Well, this is maybe one of the first artists in Music Meltdown I've done that I knew every album beforehand, outside of the Police, I think. And yeah, I'm a fan. I have a feeling I won't be as big of a fan of as Rupert, but I saw them live in 2017 here in Finland, and I really enjoyed the show, and I love their playing and a lot of great songs, hits, or just album tracks. And I perhaps have some eras I definitely prefer more than others, but yeah, I enjoyed this re-listens of this discography.
Nice. Like what we did for the Kinks as well as Elton John, this is going to be one of them in which we need to come to a general consensus on the ranking. That being said, I'm going to pull on the screen share here and we can begin to start with these records. And the first one that we're going to be covering is probably a bit of a questionable one to begin with. It's going to be Kingdom of Desire from the early 90s. This is definitely where length started to become a pretty big factor for me. Remember correctly, this record was around 70 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll let the cat out of the bag. I don't think that their sound really constitutes that type of length. And by this point, I did not care for the production across this record. It's trying to blend in with that early 90s rock scene. It's not working for Toto. I'll take the 80s cheese over the 90s, whatever they're doing here. I did really enjoy a track off of here, being the song "What Up, Don't Chain My Heart." But past that, I didn't get a ton from this. And this was kind of where the catalog started to go down for me. So maybe not the best place for us to start out. It's still number 1 for now, though. And anything to add about Kingdom of Desire?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny choice for the first record because it's like the last one with Jeff Beccaro, the kind of like band leader, almost drummer. And it's got lots of good things going for it. It's like really muscular, really fierce guitar, gypsy train kickstarts the record with so much fire. Don't Chain My Heart's like a really good poppy number. It's generally got really lean, heavy sound, is like a little bit long. Like it gets a little bit like generic, like midway. There are a few too many like generic ballads, like Two Hearts, that drag it down a bit. But you got some real good songs at the end of the record, like Kingdom of Desire title track. It's just this really quaking, epic song. And then Jake to the Bone is just this really crazy jazz fusion piece. It's definitely way too long. Could have been tightened to about 50 minutes. But it's yeah, still lots to enjoy. Just a bit of a like tragic record because it is Jeff Porcaro's last one. So it's got a big tinge of sadness over it. Still really like it though. It's about 3.5 stars.
Nice.
Yeah.
That one would be 2.5 for me. I feel bad because Porcaro is a great drummer. I'll say that, and you could definitely feel his loss whenever he passed on the later records for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Another thing is just another album where like Lucifer sings every track on here, so it's maybe a little bit uniform. It doesn't have as much variety as say like the earlier ones do, where you got like a mix of singers.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This record.
Yeah. I think a lot of the points have been said about this album already. It's a bit too long. I would agree there's maybe some ballads that you could just totally throw away or put as B-sides or something. But I think one said that I really enjoyed that I don't think wasn't mentioned was the opener, Gypsy Train, like a heavier bluesy number. And yeah, I think this is a kind of a like a Lukather's Guitar Hero album. It just gets to shine on this album, and it's fun to hear. I kind of miss maybe like I think Lukather is I think it's a very good ballad singer for the most part, at least. And I guess they work in the rockers too, but I kind of miss like a Joseph Williams or somebody like a more, I don't know how to say it, like a higher singer, like a, I don't know look at their baritone or tenor. I don't exactly know, but I think I miss like maybe it's also the variety of singers that some of these albums have. But yeah, but I think it's a good album. It's 3.5 for me. It's maybe somewhere in the middle of that ranking would be. But yeah, it's still enjoyable, and yeah, sadly the last album that Jeff was on. So yeah.
Thanks. This is definitely tempering expectations, that record, with just how much more you guys like Toto than me. So that's fun. However, we're going from one of my lesser favorite Toto records to my favorite record now, actually, as the second record to be discussed is going to be Hydra. This was my favorite record going through this. I have this one at 4 stars. Definitely their most progressive leaning of their earlier era. Still having a bit of those soulful touches, however, that was on the debut record. And I just think that this is their best collection of songs overall. Stuff like A Secret Love, the title track, 99, Lorraine. I think that they're all just incredibly well performed, well articulated tracks. And I would say this is probably one of my best productions that they have. Oftentimes, I feel like their records could be maybe a bit overproduced and a bit overdone. And I feel like on this one, it reaches a perfect balance while still showcasing the excellent playing that's found in the band, which even on the records that I dislike, I can admit Lukather is a sensational guitar player. And I think pretty much all the vocalists in here are pretty good. Although I'll mention that part of me just wishes Lukather was the only singer. Like, I actually like Lukather a lot as a vocalist. I don't really think that they needed all of the other people. That's not me disrespecting Bobby Kimball or any of the other ones. I just feel like Lukather on his own probably could have led the band and still had a similar level of success.
Could have, but you'd miss out on a lot, I think. I'd miss out on the other singers.
Yeah, that's fair. That being said, though, for me, this is easily at the top of the list. If you both have anything to say in regards to that, go ahead.
I always thought this was, at least compared to a few of their other more classic records, a lot scrappier. It starts off like really strong, and the title song Hydra is a bit more of a kind of atmospheric, cinematic, like diversion for them. And it's an album that's got some incredible moments. I think later on, White Sister is one of their like heaviest, most carnage songs. 99's completely like smooth. It's almost too smooth, but it's another like strong song. But it's really patchy. There are a couple of songs that are a bit undercooked. Like the Secret Love song at the end is like just a bunch of demos. It's like synthy doodly demos. Lorraine's just kind of pretty like generic plodding piano pop. All Us Boys tries to go for like an Elton John Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, but just comes off as really like cheesy. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure, but it's definitely not like a cool song. It's just got a lot of ups, but lots of downs. It's much more uneven compared to my favorite Toto records.
Yeah. So this is the Toto's prog album, but I don't know. It kind of almost feels like it's the maybe first two tracks, or maybe just the opener. I don't know, but it still has a nice variety going on to the album, kinda. But I know All Us Boys starts the side two, so there's what's gonna be a break, but I kind of always think of it as kind of a lie. It kind of stops the atmosphere, kind of. It was just a little kind of like a goofy rocker almost to the album, and yeah, I guess I'm not the biggest. I don't think Page perhaps should sing these rockers. Maybe for me, I don't mind Page like the Hydra song, but yeah, I do like this album. It has a lot of actually great songs. I like Mama, White Sister. I kind of agree a little with Rupert that Secret Love feels like a kind of underwritten almost. Kind of starts oddly, but I still think Bobby sings it well, and 99 is a good song. Yeah, it's a 4 stars for me. I like it more than Kingdom of Desire. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I like it way more than Kingdom of Desire, but I take it there isn't going to be any riots putting Hydra above that one.
I think it is probably a shade above Kingdom of Desire because it's got more classic. Like the highs are up there with like the classic best. Although, yeah, I don't think it's a prog record really. It's just like the first song that's prog, and the second song ties in with it a little bit.
But it's usually still called kind of like a, at least I see term prog a lot of places.
That's it. I'd say
Probably
they
the
have a,
song
sorry.
David Page sings on the most as well. I figured it seems to sing at least half of the record, and then like not so much afterwards.
True, that is true.
I will say, I feel like people call that one their prog record, but they definitely have another album that's far more progressive later on. However, it's just not as good. But anyways, next up, it's actually going to be their final release, Old is New. I really liked the song Alone. I thought that was going to be a really great start to what could be a late career highlight. The rest of it was fine. It was perfectly listenable. I just felt really nothing listening to it. I feel bad because they're all strong players, they're all talented musicians, but it's just what they do doesn't personally excite me a lot of the time, and this is kind of an example of that. Also, I don't really get why Skrillex is on this. Like, I didn't hate that song as much as I would have expected going into it, but I don't understand why it exists. For me, I would probably put this just above Kingdom of Desire, but it's still just 2.5 for me. It's fine. I don't have any strong feelings towards it one way or another. So, Rupert,
Yeah, it's actually easily like my lowest playing record. Um, it's strangely like it's almost like not like a proper studio project. It's just kind of a collection of like studio bits. They kind of rejuvenated as part of a like a expansive career spanning box set. So it doesn't really have an album feel. I enjoy the first track; it's a great start. But there's not like a lot to pick out from the rest of it. I think there's one song called Spanish Sea, um, which kind of follows like the Africa songwriting formula. It's got kind of more exotic kind of percussion, but like I don't really like the track that much. Chelsea's got more like piano, kind of almost show tuning, piano pop to it. And the Skrillex is kind of the other only kind of notable kind of track on it, right at the end. And I don't like it or dislike it. It's just kind of silly. Um, there's not really a lot of appeal to this album except to like diehard fans. It's yep, my last place record.
nice.
Definitely below Kingdom of Desire.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll say this for Skrillex being on a Toto record, he doesn't do as much as you would expect. Like I was expecting a train wreck disaster, but it's just another sort of mediocre track with just some random slight dubstep added to it. It's weird.
Hmm.
It's got Skrillex on the name, but I think there are other like producers who do a lot of the legwork
Okay,
on that song.
Hmm.
So it's a bit watered down Skrillex.
I'd agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just gonna quickly say like yeah, this is one of my least listened albums too. I think this was originally like a box set or something, and they just decided to release it separately, like in 2020. And yeah, I think I listened to this once in maybe like YouTube before, like in multiple years ago. But I think I know the songs that were on the compilation album for the trips around the sun. That means Alone, Spanish Sea, and Struck by Lightning. And maybe because I'm more familiar with them, I enjoyed them maybe the most. Um, Struck by Lightning has a pretty killer guitar solo actually, and I like Chelsea too. There's a couple of like kind of boring ballads actually in the second half of the album, but and yeah, I don't know about that Skrillex collab. I think it's kind of odd stuff, but yeah, but I think this actually wasn't my last. I think the length is maybe a little that isn't as problematic, and I enjoyed way more of the first half of this album, and like I think I gave it a 3. It's fine, it's decent. I don't hate it or anything, but it's definitely the worst so far on our list.
Nice. Yeah, I will definitely say, even though I didn't necessarily like the album, it was very nice just to have a shorter release at the end of everything. Like I could
Yeah,
just get in and be done. I don't have to listen to Toto anytime soon. Once again, I like this band, kind of. They're cool sometimes.
kind of. Yeah.
Next up is going to be Toto 14, which I will say this, probably their worst produced record, right? It just feels really loud, a bit overblown at points. just wasn't a fan of the sound of it. I do think that there are some pretty good songs, though. I liked Orphan a good bit, 21st Century Blues, Burn, and I think this one was only around 50 minutes or so. So I was pretty happy with that by this time of the career. I gave this one 3 stars. I thought it was pretty decent. For me, I would have it right now in the list above Kingdom of Desire, below Hydra. But I'm ready to hear you both out on what you're thinking about Toto 14.
Yeah, so I think I mean, so like I have a hint of agreement with what you're saying. It's definitely got more 21st like century production. It's louder, more of a digital sheen to it. But it's got some banging songs, and like the opener is really immense. It's one of their just a really good rocking opener. Burns, a nice tender ballad. Holy War just has so much going on. It's got so much rock energy. And there's also some really classic like yacht rock tunes as well. Like Chinatown, I think they resurrected from like the late 70s. It's got a real Joe Jackson kind of like dark, smooth yacht rock feel. And there's like a really like hyper sentimental ballad as well called The Little Things by Steve Porcaro, which is like so like sugary, but it kind of works. It's just a real feel good moment. Really like the song. I think it's 21st Century Blues. It's sung by Steve Lukather. That's just a real sleek, classy guitar blues rock tune. And also the closer, Great Expectations, just feels like a massive last hurrah for the group. It's really, really, yeah, proggy. Got like David Page, Joseph Williams doing like tag team on the vocals. Just lots of different epic sections. It rocks, hits really hard. Really a little inconsistent song to song, but it's got lots of feel good moments that kind of evoke literally like Toto 4, Toto 1. Lots of good Easter eggs for like longtime fans. Overall, really good. I'd almost give it like it's between 3.5 and 4 star for me. Definitely above Old is New. Probably it's tough to decide if it goes above Kingdom of Desire. Probably just a little bit below for me.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know, like it's like a album where I like some of these songs and some of these are kind of almost forgettable. I don't know, but yeah, I really enjoyed the opener. Running Out of Time rocks pretty hard, and 21st Century Blues was a. Sometimes I'm not that into blues or anything, but I kind of like this. Look at their version of it, and Orphan. It's pretty melodic and fun, musically, and Chinatown has some great playing, and yeah, I think that Closure is a would have been a nice way to end the catalog kind of, but not better closures than the Skrillex song, definitely. But but yeah, so I enjoy half of this album. Yeah, I agree with Adrian. It's not one of the best sounding albums for me. Like definitely a bit too loud and maybe not as dynamic I would like it to be. But yeah, I don't know. I think I would put it maybe like above all this new, so in the third spot. But
Yeah.
they're not too far away actually from me. Kind of in the bottom placements.
For me. Now, the next album that we're going to be discussing is one of the earlier ones left on the board. And the first album that really disappointed me, it's going to be Turn Back. Another one where I don't think it sounds very good. This is definitely their most dated record to me. Really screaming of that incredibly early 80s sound. And unlike their first few records, I just simply think that this one lacks good songs to really justify it. I feel like after the first two records, they kind of hit a bit of a creative rut here where I just don't really like any of the songs, to be honest with you. The opener on this record, I'm blanking on the title of it. I really dislike. I hated the vocal performance on it. It just annoyed me to death. I don't know. I just didn't really get anything from Turn Back at all. For me, this would be the bottom currently, although I know that you both probably feel stronger about this one than me. It's still only 2.5 stars, though. I don't think that it's necessarily poor. Everything is still well played. And it has Steve Lukather on it, so the guitar playing is, of course, going to be top notch. But I don't know, just didn't really connect with the songs here. So now for hopefully nicer things about this record.
Yeah, I think you're right about a lot of stuff. I think it's not as inspired quite as much as their first two albums, and it does have pretty strange production, which sounds really scooped with no kind of warmth. Sounds like you're listening to everything on like a really tinny car radio. And yeah, the harmonies on the opening track are like a bit too poppy. The chorus is a bit dull. Something's not really clicking with a lot of the songs. I think English Eyes grinds on as well. Sounds a bit flat. It's got a couple of really good Lukather moments, like "Live for Today" is his first credited song that he performs most of the stuff on. That is a pretty like feel good power, yeah, rock song that would fit in quite well on Toto 4. That he does some monster guitar work on "I Think I Could Stand You Forever." That's another highlight. But generally, the songs are a bit duller, and production's pretty rancid compared to their best. I actually have this all the way down, just above Old Is New. So really turn away.
Um, yeah, I think the sound is maybe one of the biggest things that kind of I'm not really enjoying the sound as much as I would like to, especially when we're talking about Toto. And yeah, and yeah, it's the kind of like they just want to have a maybe good time and just do some of these pop rock songs and yeah, it's like I personally really enjoy English Eyes. I think that's one of my favorites, but and I like the closure if it's the last night, and Goodbye Eleanor is pretty fun, and yeah, and maybe Million Miles Away, but I'm perhaps not as into the Steve Lukather tracks here. I think he will do far better in the future. Well, the next album, and yeah, the sound is maybe the biggest thing. It kind of is not. It's very oddly sounding. I don't know how to explain it. Like, but I enjoyed that car radio statement that Robert did, and yeah, so it would be like I think it would actually be like for me the third here, but I can put it below 14 if I don't have too much. I don't care that much about this.
I'd put it below 14 if that's fine with you both.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Gotcha.
I
Now the
got
next,
like Million Miles Away is probably the one with the ugliest production. It's got the dynamic changes, which like the drums come in so sudden, so harshly. I can't actually like put that track on again. It hurts.
I honestly, it's hard because look at their guitar solos sound quite nice in that album, but I don't like Most of the other sounds are a little. It's not as smooth as it should be.
Out of
Maybe.
curiosity, in regards to that record, I know that you brought it up to me before, Rupert. There was like a remix or like a remaster done sometime last decade on it.
Yeah, I think it's 2020 remaster that is out there, like on
Okay.
vinyl.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's better.
Maybe it might improve.
Hopefully. Now, next up is going to
Mm.
be the album that caught me the most by surprise. The one that I really didn't know anything about going into it, but actually became my second favorite for this entire thing. It's going to be Isolation. I really enjoyed this album. This is right after Toto 4, and I believe it's the first one after Bobby Kimball left. And I don't know, I just thought that this was a really strong continuation off of that. It's starting to sound a bit more 80s. You still have obviously those soft rock, sort of pop rock sound, but you're getting in a bit of the synths in here a little bit stronger than on Toto 4. And I just think it's a more consistent track listing, which might be devastating to some, but oh well. Tail track's great. I loved Angel Don't Cry. I think Carmen is a great song. Stranger in Town. There's just so much really good material across here. I think Lukather really showing off across this record, and just really front to back, it's one of their more enjoyable releases. I'm still only at 3.5 stars, but I mean, I did enjoy this record, and I could see myself really wanting to go back to it because I could definitely see it growing. I'm not sure who it was either, but I did really like the replacement vocalist for Kimball across this record. I thought that they did a really good job stepping in. I also believe that this was the only record that they were on, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So yeah, what are you all thinking on Isolation?
I love it. Yeah, yeah. It's one of the most growing records for me actually since my recent Toto re-listen. I always thought like because the lead singer, replacement singer Fergie Fredrickson, he's got a much like higher, like more like arena rock sound to his vocals. It's much higher pitched and air metal maybe, um, hair metal. I didn't always like those tracks, but um, it's just a really good bunch of songs. I think Angel Don't Cry has grown on me a lot. It's so campy and theatrical, and it's really harder rocking, and also got lots of synthiness, as you say. It's almost like two distinctly separate Totos on this album. You've got the ones that Fergie sings, and the ones with just a regular Toto singing on them, like Carmen and Stranger in Town, Pollyanna. It's like almost shouldn't really gel, but it's stuffed with like good tracks. I think my favorite, I got two favorites. Lion, which is a lot darker and funkier, reminds me of like Duran Duran if they had a more metal sound, like Notorious. Um, and then Mr. Friendly on the second half. It's just got like great harmonies, lots of great nervous energy. Just really an underrated record for them. Easily
Yep.
4 stars, not higher.
Nice, nice.
Mm.
I'd agree to pretty much all of that. I definitely heard Duran Duran across this record. That's like a big comparison I feel like you can make here.
Mm. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it's a great album. Like one of the maybe more underrated Toto albums out there. And I think the album cover is a little silly. Doesn't really looks like what they're gonna get from this album. But yeah, I guess I did say that Kingdom of Desire was the Guitar Hero album for Look at Her, but I think he's kind of also showing it off in here too, while he does it in multiple albums, I guess. And some nice guitar solos here, and there's some like really awesome pop songs that probably should have been bigger than they are, like Endless or really enjoy Isolation, the title track. And Carmen is, I love how the Carmen just starts immediately. And Angel Don't Cry is just a Fun Rocker and Stranger in Town is the biggest song in here. And yeah, I think Fergie was a nice replacement. I don't really have problems with his voice. I think it fits quite well here. And yeah, this is their like 80s AR piece, and yeah, there's a it has one of the more, I don't know how to say it, like definitely has really of that 80s sound, like you could maybe, I don't know how to say it, because I think the Toto 4 and the Fahrenheit sounds quite different to this, and like they're more, I don't know, smoother, and I don't know what I'm saying exactly, but there's a definite sound to this album that I enjoy. Yeah, Isolation, that would be my number one in this like albums we have now here.
Yeah, me too. I'd put it at top so far.
I'd have Hydra at the top, but I'm fine with it being number 2. That works for me. Now we're going from the record where Bobby Kimball just left to his initial final one, being their biggest release, Toto 4. This one actually shrunk on me a little bit. I had it 4 stars going into this. I'm down to 3.5. I still do like it. For me, currently, this would go below Isolation, although I suspect it's probably going to be the top slot. Just a really good AOR record. Really fun, really enjoyable. Of course, the production on this, sublime. The big singles, Rosanna and Africa, are pretty much just excellent pop songs in general. I think Make Believe is great. Lovers in the Night. Just tons of really good songs on here. Maybe my favorite was Waiting for Your Love. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. I just don't personally gel with it in the way that I know that you both do. I have the 3.5 stars. I think it's a damn solid record for this style of music. And for me, this would be 3rd place, but I'm fine putting it higher. So, Toto 4, good record.
Classic record. Yeah, I mean, for me, it'll comfortably be my number one. Would be a little bit of a crime to put it below Hydra. Songs like Rosanna are like state of the art and masterworks. Like every bit of it, like the meticulous synth solo worked out by Steve Porcaro, to like the Red Hot Blues outro. It's just like one of their best ensemble songs. Africa at the end, it's just eternal. So good. Waiting for Your Love is quite really, really soft and synth funky, but it's got one of Bobby Kimball's best vocal performances, one of his last ones for the group in that decade. But it's just filled with really slick, maybe a bit soft, but really slick and like really good joyful cuts like Make Believe and Good For You. I can't really fault any of the middle tracks, even though Rosanna at the top and Africa at the end are like literally everything else in the middle looks a bit of a kind of valley in comparison. Other than that, it's definitely my number one so far.
Yeah. This was my first Toto album I heard, and multiple years ago, and like I did listen to quite a bit back then, and I don't know, maybe I slightly overplayed some of those, I don't know, but a lot of great songs here. There's like the biggest, probably defines Toto, like the biggest songs here, kind of Rosanna, Africa, Maybe I Won't Hold You Back. People know it, people love them, and sometimes if I'm just talking about Toto, it's like oh, it's the Africa band, right? And yeah, it is. And I think Rosanna is probably my favorite song here. I think it's a perfect 80s pop single with a lot of tight playing and obviously the famous Porcaro groove that it has with that birdie shuffle and Full in the Rain influences. And yeah, I Won't Hold You Back. I love that song. One of my favorite Look at Our ballads, and I especially love that moment when that guitar solo comes. It's just so emotional and just so perfect in that moment. Kind of just want to forget about everything else, and it's a feeling. It's pretty nice, like Porcaro song, Steve, and I prefer Taking It Back from the debut, but it's a solid song. And Waiting for Your Love is it's a cool tune, and I like the rockers. They're not maybe the peak rockers they have done, but they're just pretty fun. And Africa is a classic. I don't know, is it overplayed for me? Like it's like I don't play it a lot actually, but I don't mind when it comes on, but I don't usually pick it to play it randomly. But it's a great song still. For me, I personally prefer Isolation more, but I have like so I would put it number 2, but I guess what we're gonna figure out.
I'd put it number 1, and 6 Grammys say number 1 as well.
Yeah, and I get it's it's definitely more classic than Isolation, but
I would personally put it below Isolation too, but I don't know how strongly I feel towards that. They're both 3.5 stars for me. So I mean, I like them both.
yeah.
It's really up to you both about how we want to go about this.
We can put it number 1. I don't really mind.
Yeah, and we
It's
can
a
do
classic
that.
Gotcha.
still.
I was gonna say, I think Rupert maybe feels the strongest about most of these records of us, so probably for the best.
Yeah.
This is another
Yeah.
one that I know that he quite likes, and maybe is the reason why he said so far it's going to be Fahrenheit. This was, I believe, their 86 release. Definitely the one where they're tackling a bit of sort of 80s R&B, a bit of soul creeping back into the sound. You've mentioned it being a bit like Duran Duran at points, and I can definitely see that. I have this one pretty high 3 stars. I don't really know why I didn't go 3.5. Plenty of good material here. I think that this is where length is starting to become an issue, though. I believe this one is creeping into the higher 40-minute mark, and I really only cared for about half the tracks. Somewhere Tonight's really good. The tail track's great. Can't stand it any longer till the end. Ton of really good songs here. I just wasn't in love with the sound of the record, but I can admit it's cool and I like what they're doing with it. It's just not personally top shelf Toto for me. I would have it just below Hydra, but I have a feeling that you both feel a lot stronger on this one than I do.
Well, I mean, personally speaking, yeah, big fan of this record. It's just really glitzy, glamorous, joyful 80s pop. The opener, like Till the End, is a bit of a screaming opener. It's really exotic. It cools down for the chorus, but then you got some of like Lucifer's most explosive like guitar solo work. We Can Make It Tonight is just so like feel good, glitzy pop. Without Your Love is sung by Lucifer. That's a much kind of more natural, kind of chiller kind of groove. You've got like some classic yacht rock ballads with I'll Be Over You with Michael McDonald singing background, which like cheeses it up a bit, but still enjoy. Fahrenheit is one of the most mental songs they've done. It reminds me of like Ghostbusters. It's so intense. You got like creepy sound effects in the intro, just like so much like production and horns and synth work. It's just like a lot of fun. and I guess main other point, it goes on a different direction, different tangent at the end. You've got probably the two softest songs they've done. Leah is just is this most smoothest ballad they've done. It's almost like being in a dentist lobby. It's so relaxed and smooth, almost too smooth. And the last track features Miles Davis and makes me feel like I'm in a kind of film noir movie. It's got that kind of real downcast, kind of jazzy feel to it. Yeah, it's just got lots of neat pop tunes, lots of surprises, a lot of good guitar fused in with the poppier stuff. Yeah, love it. 5-star. I wouldn't say it's as good as Toto 4, but it's very high up for me.
Yeah, I'm really, really biased in this one, and this was kind of my album when I got my driver's license. I just had this, so listened to this so many times back then. Yeah, I'm usually with the, if it's feel good and 80s, it's gonna be high up for me, and it's not been the first time I put on a mid 80s album at the top. So yeah, this is my top album. I love it. I love I love most of these songs. Till the end is very very danceable, very 80s. So much fun. Love that guitar solo. It's kind of odd almost, but it still fits very well. And We Can Make It Tonight, yeah, it's basically feel good, like Rupert said, and Without Your Love has this relaxed groove going on, and look at her singing, that's great. I'll Be Over You is a classic. Yeah, I love Mike McDonald's backy vocals, and so yeah, there's a lot of ballads in this one. It's a more softer release, but I don't mind that at all. I think all the ballads are still pretty great. And it's has these funky moments like maybe the title track and in the 80s way, and just a lot of great playing. I love when Miles Davis does the last song, and cool guest stars I guess Don Henley. uh, yeah, and I love Leah. I think it's just a lovely ballad that I can just put before I go to sleep, or I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely very smooth, and yeah, it's a 5 stars for me.
Nice. So I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to convince you both to put it below Isolation.
No, it's like a top 2 album for me.
Yeah.
I was a bit bolder. I'd almost call it my number 1. I think I will.
I'm comfortable putting it number 2 just because I think Toto 4 is a stronger overall release. Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you think the length is problem in this one.
That's going to be really funny when we get to another record. I'll say that. It's going to be really, really questionable saying that. It's going to be now because the next record is Mindfields.
Yeah. I just mentioned quickly about Fahrenheit because I think Joseph William knocks it out of the park as the new vocalist. He is his best sounding, so youthful sounding on that one as well. Sounds almost like Michael Jackson sometimes.
Yeah.
So they sound weird, but he might actually be my favorite of their replacement vocalists. I might actually like him a bit more than Bobby, which might be a little weird, but I think it's a really strong voice. Speaking of Bobby, he's back on Minefields, and I don't know what it was, but I like this album, which is crazy. It's 80 minutes long. It's not really all that smooth or all that collected. If anything, this is one of their harder rocking ones up to that point. But you still have a bit of that sort of soulful inflection that you get with Bobby Kimball. And I don't know. I just thought something about the late 90s sound them sort of coming back. It weirdly doesn't sound very dated to me, which is what I would have expected from this record, just given the time period and the ones around it. I think this one actually holds up fairly nicely. Selfish is a great song. I really enjoyed Last Love. Melanie was delightful. Mad About You. I think that there are some really good tracks across here that elevated it, and I just enjoyed listening through it. I thought that there was incredible playing across it. I only have it at 3.5. It's a low 3.5, mind you, but 3.5 means something for this band for me. So I actually have this one at the current list. I have it right below Hydra. I actually have this one above Fahrenheit personally. So I don't know what it was about this record. I just really enjoyed it, which is not what I was expecting. This is the one I was second most dreading going into this, just because I saw the length. But I was thoroughly impressed by this one. 3.5 stars. I like it.
Yeah, to be honest, I was also looking at the album cover and dreading it as much, just for the really clashing artwork. It took a lot of listens. I think the first couple of times I played this, I fell asleep each time because of the length. But it's one of those records that becomes a little more enjoyable. I was expecting it to be kind of my bottom record, but there's a lot of good stuff. My problem with it is that it's not a lot of exceptional stuff. It is just fairly standard, like 70s pop rock style music for them. It doesn't really do anything adventurous. They just do about 75 minutes worth of fairly good music for them. I think a few of the songs like remind me a bit of Beatles, like late 60s, like Magical Mystery Tour. I think After You've Gone, it's got like tinges of like Indian instrumentation and psychedelic studio effects. There's another song, I think, In the Middle. I think it's the last one. It reminds me a bit of like While My Guitar Gently Weeps because of the downward progression. It's just like it's fairly comfortable, not exceptional. One track that does things a bit differently is Melanie, which is more of a 90s style like guitar ballad with like drum loops in it. That was the first song to actually stand out for me. But yeah, it's a solid album. It kind of grows on you. I give it 3.5. It's certainly not a bad album, despite the length. It could have done with being about 3 songs shorter, or even 5 or 6 songs. Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's one of those albums that are too long and be kind of just is there for me. Like there are songs I like in this one, like in every other Toto album. But yeah, it's not a very it's not the easiest listen for me, definitely. Caught in the Balance I really enjoy. It's like more like a kind of like a 80s Toto song, I don't know. Really good chorus and Cruel. I like the drums in that song. Kind of fun. I enjoyed the like a proggier Better World tune, and yeah, there was like a 9-minute Bluesier number, High Price of Hate. I don't really I think 9 minutes is a bit too long for it, and so I think Mysterious Face was pretty good too. Like it's kind of like one of these albums I like the sound of it pretty well, and yeah, it's just fine. Like I would rather listen to some songs out of there than fully on. But I don't know. I actually put it as my bottom, but I don't know. It doesn't have to be a bottom on our, because all this new kind of just exists, but I just prefer the length of that, so I just wouldn't put that. It's my bottom one.
Okay. For me, I would have this just below Hydra, above Kingdom of Desire. However, I think for here, what might be a better placement is just below Toto 14. If Towdy's saying it's his least favorite overall.
Yeah, I'd put that
Yeah.
below 14.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
So it's good to me. We're going from the first reunion record with Bobby Kimball to the first record with him in general, being the debut, Toto 1. And I started this and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty good album. I enjoyed it. I think this is the album of theirs that has the most of sort of a soulful touch to it. There's definitely a bit of funk across here, R&B styles, which I always love. And I just think overall this is a pretty solid release. It's a good sort of rock record, hold the line, really good. Rock maker, taking it back is obviously great. I really enjoyed I'll Supply the Love and Georgie Porgy. I don't feel that this is anything exceptional, and nor that it's necessarily a highlight of anything. I just think that it's perfectly listenable, perfectly enjoyable, and I liked it. For me, looking at the list currently, I would probably put it just below Hydra once again, but that'll be the case for most records that I like on the list. So, how do you both feel about the debut?
Yeah, really strongly. I think it's a classic. It's basically classic Toto from the outset, just very accomplished. You got a clutch of really like strong popular singles, including maybe their other definitive song along with Rosanna in Africa, which is Hold the Line. It's just got all the good Toto elements of the piano riff and the Kimball vocals and the like monster guitar solos and riff. Georgie Porgy's just really smooth disco and soul. I'll Supply the Love is the other big song. That's just a real powerful pop like gem. And yeah, pretty much all the album tracks are just really good and varied. Um, it's just a pretty immaculate debut. You Are the Flower. Yeah, it's another standout like with Bobby Kimball. Just really soulful and elegant. And Taking It Back is the my kind of underrated gem from the album. It's sung by Steve Porcaro. He's got this kind of lounge, laid back, almost talking way of singing, and it's just really melancholic. And yeah, love it. It's in my top 3 for sure. It's just too many like highlights on this record to mention. I love pretty much all the tracks except for Manuela Run. So yeah, top notch, top 3.
Yeah. I like that this debut album has a lot of variety. They kind of trying out different things, and maybe I like some of those better, so not, but like Out the Line being the first single, I think they just gotta hit it out of the park. And yeah, I love I've heard that song maybe a bit too many times over years, but I still get a kick out of that guitar solo, and especially Jeff's. I love his bass drum work in that song a lot. And Girl Goodbye is one of those songs that I would just put it to high volume and just enjoy it, like driving to it, or maybe silly lyrics, but I don't really care. And Taking It Back, yeah, it's one of maybe my favorite Steve Porcaro song, and I especially love the ending. I talked with Rupert once with the I don't know, it's double speed ending, but yeah, it's definitely a cool touch to the song. And yeah, the flower. I'm sorry, are you gonna say something?
No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the flower is very soulful, and I love the Bobby's vocals in that song. I Supply the Love. Actually, a lot of great songs. I'm thinking of this. I Supply the Love
Loads of fun as well, even though it's got really like stupid, like inane lyrics. It's got a lot of fun guitar work towards the end, and Paige sings like the dumbest stuff, but good.
Yeah. Maybe it's another one of these kind of rockers. I would prefer somebody else singing, but it's still pretty good. And I Supply the Love I love the funky ending to the tune and catchy chorus. But I think maybe because I think people love this song, but I'm not as big of a fan of George Porgy. Something about the Cheryl's part in the end that kind of annoys me a little.
Bit repetitive, but it's kind of grown on me a bit. Into a little week because it always.
I don't know. Is that like a nursery rhyme, or I don't know?
Yeah.
So maybe it's kind of meant to be sort of a repetitive. I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely a very solid debut album, and I don't know where to place it actually. It's like in my rankings it wouldn't go above Isolation, but I don't know how to think this.
For me, it's firmly third place. It's definitely too accomplished to not be any lower. For me, yeah, I mean, I'd put it above Isolation myself.
I know it's going to go above Hydra. I would personally want it below Isolation, but I don't know, I'm not feeling too strongly. So
yeah. Like
I'll probably
I would also,
place, but I'm happy to go with. I mean, if there's a reason why it should be below Isolation, I'm all ears.
I would put it below there, but that's mainly just because Isolation is my second favorite record by them in general. So it's like I just feel stronger about that one personally. But I believe Toto 1 is my third favorite, so it's not like there's a huge discrepancy between the two in my rankings. So
I guess it's one of those things that I personally prefer Isolation, but if I would have to argue against it, it's kind of tougher to argue against the debut than Isolation. So
yeah,
I don't really mind.
A little bit more classic, just like a touch more classic than Isolation.
Yeah,
really deny Hold the Line, and just all of the different amazingly well done styles, like prog disco at times, along with like really heavy.
I guess you could argue against Fahrenheit too with that album. I think it's more classic than Fahrenheit, but I guess we have to also think of our rankings.
But yeah, it is tough. But yeah, I wouldn't put it above Fahrenheit personally because I do enjoy Fahrenheit just that little bit more.
I mean, for me, Fahrenheit's below Hydra, so I'm kind of I don't know. I'm fine putting it third. I think that works.
Yeah.
Really,
because it matches my top three.
Well, now we can put it in fourth. Next up is going to be the seventh one. This is kind of where I feel like the production starts to feel a bit blah. This one almost kind of feels a bit like contemporary to me at points, just kind of bland. And I don't think that the songs are there, kind of similar to how I felt about Kingdom of Desire, but I just prefer this style a little bit more. I do think that there's one really strong song on here, and that's Pamela. I think that's a really strong tune, but past that, I feel incredibly little emotion towards it. I had it at 3 stars. Looking on the list, I would put this just above Kingdom of Desire personally, but I'm also fine with it going below like Minefields or Toto 14. I'm really fine with this one going wherever because it's kind of the record of theirs that I had the least impression of, to be truthful. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel a bit more strongly about this one, but it's definitely a more uneven record of theirs. They do go into the real deep end of late 80s production. It's a lot more overcooked, a lot heavier, bit too like hair metal in places. Pamela, like the first track's kind of like a subtle, like soft, like rock slash jazzier remake of Rosanna in a lot of ways, but it's still, yeah, one of the better songs. I think Mushanga, like Stop Loving You is another like big song from this one. A little overproduced, but lots of fun. Mushanga is like a really big tune because of the Jeff Porcaro groove. It's so like so much is going on, but it's so nuanced. Just yeah, creates the like rolling feel of a Savannah. That's a top-notch tune. You got some real like clashing songs like Stay Away. It's just like buried by the late 80s guitar. It just sounds really overcooked and overprocessed. Like there are a couple of other songs like in the middle that are just a bit too like generic hair metal. They've got the Van Halen jump synths going on. You've got some of my favorite songs towards the end. Thousand Years is this really sensitive, really like dejected sounding ballad with really beautiful vocals and guitar work, classical kind of guitar work. But These Chains is like my all-time, like one of my all-time favorite tracks. It's this real like burning ballad from Luca. First got a real monster reggae kind of groove from Jeff. But it's just such a great chorus, and the solo towards the end is just so immense. It's so much emotion is pouring out. It is like one of my top moments in their discography. So overall, it's a very like uneven but memorable record for me. So it would be very high up, but maybe like even top 5. But it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I do really enjoy these Joseph Williams albums in the 80s, and yeah, I think a lot of great songs here. Starting with Pamela and Stop Loving You is I think the chorus is like doesn't get out of my head too easily. It's kind of stuck there, and I would have guessed that AJ would enjoy that song. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe not this time. Yeah, Mushanga has a great groove. Kind of complex with just there's like tom using toms and sometimes hi-hats in the middle and snare, and I think there's like a video in the YouTube where Jeff shows how he plays the song.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's kind of cool. Yeah, and Only the Children, I think they played it when I saw them live. Also Home of the Brave, and Home of the Brave is one of my favorite Toto songs actually, and they're kind of epic. To me it kind of feels like maybe Great Expectations kind of took a similar vein to that song, and This Chains, yeah, I do really enjoy it. Jeff's playing in the song is just awesome. There's like a section where he starts playing with the right cymbal, and it's just really awesome. And yeah, a lot of great tunes. Maybe there's some songs that are not to the same level. And if I remember correctly, You Got Me, like Joseph sounds like Michael Jackson in that song.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah. So I would also put it pretty high. I don't know how to maybe the top 5 in our ranking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but my 5 personally.
Personally, I don't think it's even close to Hydra for me. Like,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
really liked Hydra though. So
As long as it's like next to Hydra, I don't mind.
I would like,
Yeah.
if you're both wanting it to be somewhat higher, I would like it like above Kingdom of Desire, if that's okay. That'd be
Yeah,
number
to me, the
6.
high points on it are the things that always
Yeah.
keep pulling me back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. I would just put it a bit higher, but this is a good middle, like a consensus
Nice.
ranking of it. But I gotta say one thing. I think
Yeah.
my CD sounds really great. 7.1.
You got the lucky. You got the lucky.
Duke Sax mastering. It's like 80s pressing. I really enjoy listening to that. I can blast it.
I think you're just more of an 80s head than I though, so
Yeah,
could be.
I guess I don't have a problem with overproducing maybe in the 80s because
Right.
I kinda
All
it's
right.
part of the charm maybe.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about an album with zero charm, an album that I hated listening to and was by far the low point of this entire thing, and falling in between. To be blunt, I didn't like this album at all. I thought this was kind of nauseating to listen to. I don't know why Toto thought it was a good idea to throw on their Dream Theater shoes and start walking around in the porcupine tree land. But them trying to do this almost like progressive metal sound, it's almost like if I decided to go start like a hardcore punk band, but I'm going to utilize synth for my main instrument. It's just like nothing about it fits. They bought the wrong size suit and are trying to make it work. It's like Bobby Kimball just feels so out of place as a vocalist here as well. He sounds good, but he does not fit this material. And to be blunt, it's just really boring. I don't think that Lukather is really showing off in the way that he typically does. I don't get any real excitement from the playing, and that's what you want from prog. I don't feel anything from the playing here. I don't think that they're well constructed songs, and it's 50 minutes long. So it's like I got nothing out of this at all. I gave it 2 stars for some reason, but I think this is very firmly the bottom. I don't think that there's anything even close to matching how bad I think this record is. So yeah, sorry Toto and you guys, I think. I just don't like this at all.
Ouch. I definitely liked it, yeah, a lot more. I think it's got a lot more going for it than Minefields. They do many more different things. They're much more bolder and adventurous. I don't listen to too much Dream Theater, to be honest. But I like what they're going with in the first track. You got a nice clash of like styles. It sounds distinctly like Middle Eastern. You got lots of nice riffs, nice blend of vocalists. I think Bobby Kimball doesn't sound much different, or even might sound a little bit better compared to Minefields. Dying on My Feet starts off like a typical Minefield song, but it just suddenly like turns into this really wild kind of like Latin fiesta with all sorts of Latin percussion and like Chicago horns. I like a lot of the songs, like Bottom of My Soul sees like Joe Williams returning in the chorus. King of the World's like a really poppy throwback to their stuff, like Stranger in Town, even like the Verses of Africa. It's like a really good cast of players as well. Greg Gaines like pops in. He's like legendary session keyboard player, but he actually becomes a like full-time member, and he sings a couple of songs. It's got this really slippery funk number towards the end, Let It Go, which is yeah, one of my faves on the album. Pretty emotive. It's got like Hooked, which is like such a heavy tune for them. It's this real heavy metal stomp. You got Simple Life, which the nice thing is that it's like often the ballads are quite long at this point in the career, but it's just like a 2-minute and you're out ballad. The second half of the song really shines brightly for me. I just there's just lots of bits of playing that's lots of fun. There's bits that don't work. I think Taint Your World's got a bit of like DJ scratching in the middle, which it's one of their like most rocking songs, but then the DJ scratching happens and almost like wrecks it. But it recovers just enough. Yeah, I'd give it like 4 stars. I think it's a really good kind of late era album for them. Lots to like give a second chance, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's a good album. Like if Hydra has those prog rock influences, I kind of get some prog metal influences here. And yeah, I actually enjoy title track, the first song, quite a bit. It's really nice and heavy, and Dying on My Feet has those horns that come on later, and they're cool, kind of surprising almost. And Bottom of Your Soul is a pretty melodic ballad that's I really enjoy. And I think one of the things that's maybe missing for me, like maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I don't think this album has too many Lukather solos. I know Let It Go has, but maybe there's another one, but there's kind of missing the solos, this one, for me. And if I remember, Taint Your World was like had that sort of maybe Van Halen kind of a chorus going on, and pretty fun. But yeah, I'm personally not as into the obviously great players, but not as big on Gaines as a vocalist maybe, and Page's vocals in this one. But I think Ipa sounds pretty good still. I'm not sure. There's sometimes like some vocal effects used maybe. I know I once watched like the Falling in Between live thing years ago, and definitely noticed it was very I don't know, was it auto-tuned, or definitely felt like it. And yeah, I like Lukather's vocals in this album a lot actually. It's a heavier Toto album, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I would kind of maybe put it above 14 for me, but I can discuss whatever.
I'd put it above 14 as well. I think it's more kind of like more things going on with it from start to finish.
I don't think Adrian is happy.
I can't even comprehend how this isn't their worst record. I think there is genuinely nothing redeeming about this record. I loathe listening to this in the way that I loathed most things. I thought this was dreadful. I mean, if you both feel that it should be above Toto 14, I'll subtly cry after this is over, but I'm truly in as much agony as I could possibly display. I get
Yeah.
I get Tavi
Yeah.
liking this, but I mean, it is what it is. Because I don't know. This is very much not my seat for what it's worth. So I can't really
That is
properly.
true. That is
Well,
true.
one record left. Tambu, however you say it. This one was like 70
Mm.
minutes long, and I didn't hate listening to it, but it was just kind of agonizing to have to finish it. I just got nothing. This was Kingdom of Desire, but I liked the playing less. Once again, one song that I really liked being The Other End of Time. But past that, I got nothing front to back from this listen, basically. This is kind of the one that I struggled with the most. Because even though I didn't like Falling in Between, it was at least interestingly poor. With Tambu, I just found myself really dozing off and just finding myself really disinterested most of the time, which makes me liking mind games even more perplexing to me, if anything. But I don't know. For me, this one, looking at the list currently, this would actually be my last place, but I'm more than happy to put this above Falling in Between if you both want to. So
No, it's got its like plus points. I like the way it sounds. It's very nicely produced, and it's um the first album with Simon Phillips popping in uh as the drum replacement, and he slots in really naturally. Um, the band are sounding great. The first two tracks are really good. Gift of Faith is almost like a continuation from the stuff on Kingdom of Desire. It's got a kind of almost funk metal sheen to the background. Um, and I Will Remember is one of their classier ballads, kind of like dedicated to like Jeff Porcaro. Um, After that, there is like it does suffer a problem of like having like too many songs that don't really have enough energy or rock to them. Even though they're trying lots of different things, like there's one track, I think it's track 5, which has a bit more of a drum loop hip hop flavor, and it's got like the backing vocals from Jenny Douglas McRae, um, who just adds a bit more flavor to the record. Um, yeah, there's a point called the turning point where I figure this album isn't doing enough to mix it up. And yeah, it's not until Dragon to the Roof that you get a kind of sudden burst of like pop energy and rock and roll mayhem. Um, there are just like with Kingdom of Desire, there are just like 3 or so unnecessary ballads, which just pad out the track list. Um, and it is kind of, again, they kind of save the stronger tracks to the very end. Dave's Gone Skiing is like really fun, intense metal flavored instrumental. The Road Goes On has that kind of Boston more than a feeling quality to the guitar, I think. I think it's a really pleasant album, but it's just a few tracks too long in the middle. I'd still like recommend it. It's like a 3.5 listen for me. Just a bit too gentle, not as adventurous as the adventure book cover on the front would hint.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, well, 70 minutes of Tumble is a bit unfortunate. Like you guys have a lot of later Toto albums, but like Gift of Fate, I think it's a great song. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Kingdom of Desire 2, and I Will Remember is one of those songs later period songs that I sometimes hear in the radio. And yeah, it's pretty touching actually. And Yeah, I would say also the second half, I think, is better for me. And I think there's a lot of ballads in the first half too. And Tracking to the Roof is one of my favorites here. Really enjoy that song. And the drums by Simon Phillips is just, he's definitely a great player. Can't really fault him. And Dave Scott Skiing is very fun. Jazz fusion instrumental. I enjoy my jazz fusion a lot. And The Road Goes On. I view it as the closer because Black Eye almost feels like a bonus track for me. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
it
a
was a bonus track originally. Yeah, so Japanese only track.
yeah. So I don't think my CD even has that. Yeah, probably not. Yeah. So I think it's a nice closure, but yeah, I don't know where we're gonna put Sampo. I think it sounds great. I also agree with that.
I think the other end of time is, yeah, my pick of the ballads. It's got really nice kind of melody for the midpoint. And I do like like a couple of the tracks near the beginning, Slipped Away. It's got like kind of a
Mm,
bit of warmth to it.
mm.
But yeah, just 3 tracks too long. I think it's really tough. It would go between Kingdom of Desire, definitely above Toto 14 for me.
Yeah, around.
Really
Yeah,
middle of the pack.
I could put it above falling in between, but I don't really have a preference.
I mean, I'm willing to put anything above falling in between. So I,
Yeah,
um, well,
I don't mind. It's probably less exciting than Falling in Between, but I don't mind. It's a middle of the pack album.
exciting is not how I would define that record, but it is what it is. Any slight changes that you think should be made, or are we comfortable with this as our closing Toto ranking?
Pretty happy.
yeah, pretty happy. Yeah, uh,
I,
I think it's as good as we can maybe get. I think Adrian suffers the most with this ranking.
I definitely I've definitely done some sacrifices to make this list a possibility.
Yeah, yeah.
It is what
Do
it
you want to make
is.
any changes?
I don't think that either of you will appreciate the changes I want to make. So let's keep it as it is. That being said, however, that was our discussion upon the group Toto. As you can tell, I kind of like this group a little bit, maybe. Despite that, though, there are some good records, and of course, a record like Toto 4 is classic for a reason, possibly the best of its genre. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this sort of longer form catalog and enjoy this sort of rough guide to Toto if you feel inclined. That being said, I hope that you all have a great one.